Hello, and welcome to Daily Chess Analysis, episode number 18. Today we're going over the game that we played earlier today. I played 90%, roughly 90%. My opponent played 68%. As you can see, it was fairly equal, which I'm actually super happy about, all the way up until this position here, which is move number 32. That's pretty good. We held fine, didn't majorly make terrible moves until move 32. I terribly blundered. We'll go over that. And then he blundered back. How kind of him. And then I won the game after he had blundered back because his blunder was worse than my blunder. Actually, I blundered once and then he blundered twice in quick succession. Choose more than one. And so I took the victory on this one. We snatched the dub. All right. Let's look at the game. D4 knight f6, c4 e6, the East Indian defense. He played knight f3, and this is actually what I play with white. And I haven't looked at how to beat it yet. Actually, that's not totally true. I did. I just didn't play the way that I know to play against this. I was going to play d5. That's the first move that comes to mind. But I was like, wait a second. Then we just transposed into a Queen's Gambit declined, like a regular system. And I don't want to play the regular system. And I remembered that at some point it's advantageous to play bishop e7, or sorry, bishop b4, check, to provoke bishop e7, and then my bishop will go back, or I'll play queen e7. I'll probably play queen e7 or a5 to defend the bishop on b4. I got my lines mixed up and played it right away. It's a fine line. We can see here, d5 is the main move with 68,000. My move has 21,000. So we're still in some amount of theory. And actually, black scores slightly better in the bishop b4 lines. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they're better by any stretch, right? So bishop b4 comes, and he played knight c3. So it's kind of like we got back into a regular Nimzo Indian or something, and then he chose to play knight f3 at some point. Fine. Okay, so now I played d5. Maybe castling makes a lot of sense. Okay, bishop g5, h6. I don't care if he takes my knight, and he did. And that should have signaled to me that for me, maintaining the two bishops, now that I have them, is an advantage that I possess. But I was super locked into Nimzo Indian mode, where you sack for the pawn, or you take for the pawn structure, that I wasn't really thinking about these kinds of things. And in the opening, I tend to think a lot differently than I do in the middle game. e3, totally normal move. So to me, this looks like a Nimzo Indian, where he played, knight here, and e3. Looks great. Looks fine. It's called the Ragozin defense. And I played c5 when it says bishop captures c3 is best. I don't know about that. I think castles. Castles is the main move. And I think the computer, after thinking for a while, will converts to castles. Because the two bishops are good. Okay, but I played c5, which is a normal-ish move. And here I knew that there was a way where after taking with the knight isn't good, so he has to take with the pawn. And then after dc5, or dc4, he has to move his bishop again and gets an isolated pawn. And that's often, not a flaw, but that's often a feature of these queen's pawn positions with this center here, is that after he moves his bishop once, we can then take, and he has to spend another move to take there. So I'm often waiting to take this pawn until he's moved his bishop. So here, taking the bishop makes a lot of sense. But for some reason in my head, I had it that I can still get the isolated pawn even if I take this knight, which doesn't make any sense because that just brings in another attacker. Also, I didn't notice until now that the structure is actually symmetric for the most part. With the exclusion of h6, it's symmetrical, which is nice. Nice if you want to draw, not nice if you're trying to win. And I took all the pawns. And here, I should castle, right? Because there's a queen check here. Taking doesn't do anything. I decided to take instead, which takes it from an equal game to him having basically a pawn advantage. Because this c-pawn is a backward pawn that I can hack at after I get my pieces in play. And I just resolved that issue for him. And now he can grab the c file if he wants. You can see rook c1 happens really soon. He's the first one to the file. So I finally castled, which is a good sign of relief. After he castled too, I thought, where do my pieces want to go? And I said, well, I think I kind of want my bishop on the long diagonal. But I was afraid to play this move because I was like, what if he pushes this pawn here? I didn't really calculate it all out. I ended up trying to get my bishop there by other means. And bishop d7 just wasn't the best way to go about it, as the computer shows. So I got my bishop on the long diagonal. I was pretty happy about that. I really wanted to develop my other pieces, but I didn't want to develop my knight yet because then I'll have to take with the pawn and have an isolated pawn. So I threatened checkmate. He should just play g3 and kind of just ignore me. I would probably then play f6 or something, or f6 would hang this pawn. I don't know. But queen g5 is a good move. He took, which is not good, and let me develop my knight. Very good. So I'm pretty happy with this. He moved his bishop back, which was mysterious to me, but now I see it's just clearing the file for his pieces. Rook fc8, I still believe in, even though the computer says rook ac8's better. My idea was the queen side doesn't look like it's going to move. I have a majority on this side of the board, advance the majority. That's what I was thinking. And I was thinking I don't want to undefend my knight when I start pushing, so let's defend it and get on the open line. Computer doesn't necessarily agree with that. It wants to double, and so it doesn't care what order you do things in. Bishop c2, trying to go wild and crazy, handily met by g6, and a3, which stops me from taking his bishop. Makes sense. And here I thought, I want my pieces on this side of the board over here, so I can push my majority, right? 2 versus 1. Let's make a pass pawn. I went a little too far. I played queen d8. Computer again wants me to just double. And I understand that doubling is a good thing to do and it gives you an advantage. I didn't know that was... Now I understand that in some positions that takes priority over advancing your majority and getting a pass pawn. Part of the reason in this case is because there's so many pieces on the board still. We each have a knight, we each have a minor piece and a queen, and both the rooks. So the chances of that pass pawn being a queen are very little, and the further the pawn gets to my opponent, the easier it is for him to take it. So I should be focusing on other middle game advantages, like open files with pieces at the end of them. I played queen d8, trying to help out on this side of the board. He played g3, very mysterious move to me. Probably trying to play this move, but he had to defend it. I played a5 and advancing the majority, but again, computer's like, wrong plan, dude. Don't advance your majority yet. Those pawns are just easier to attack there. Just double rooks. So don't create so many pawn weaknesses by pushing the pawns. h5 just stops his quote-unquote threat. Queen e4, centralizing the queen. I thought it looked fine. I knew it didn't really do anything in particular, but it's just more annoying for me, maybe. And queen d6 is not good. If I want to advance my majority, I should do that. And I got cold feet about playing b5. But b5 would be advancing the majority, and it would stop his bishop from going to a4, which would stop that. I played queen d6, which kind of stops my opportunity to play b5. And so I tried to play it now. He stopped me, and here I went wrong again. I thought my move made a lot of sense, because I'm kicking away the bishop from the square so that I can push my majority. You're going to hear me say majority a lot this game, because the position's sort of bland besides that. It's knight for bishop. I have 2 on the side of the board. I thought my knight should be on the side of the board with my pawns. The computer said that bishop e2 makes a lot of sense for him here, rerouting his pieces. But taking is good, and I was happy with this position, because this is a reinforced pawn now. It's not a weakness, and that guy's really weak. And so I think in the game I mentioned, that's his main weakness in the position, so I should start hammering at that with all my might. He played rook fc1, and here, computer recommended playing queen to d5, which kind of surprised me. But one, I'm black, so trading queens shouldn't be too surprising, but also it attacks a weakness, right? So he has to trade queens or go back to defend it, right? Either option I'm pretty happy with. I played queen d7, attacking the majority, but declining the queen trade. And this allows the important move, rook c6, which attacks here and offers to move the pawns around, which is not very good for me. I stepped in front with my queen, which is not the most professional idea. After d5, more pawns get traded. I get my rook out, and my plan was to do this and take it. and he stopped it. Darn it, he saw it. So here he's a pawn out. And I was trying to figure out why, and basically it's because this pawn's much further forward than mine are. Also, he's an advantage over on this side of the board, and you can see he has a lot of force here, where I can't really do the same thing. So I kind of had the wrong plan here in one move. This is fine. My idea here was to play that, and whenever you see that these pieces are four units apart, that means that in order for the queen to defend the rook, it has to go far away. And oftentimes there might be a bishop here, or a knight here, or anything here, even a piece here. And if you get to play your rook here, the queen can't move anywhere to defend the rook. So this relationship of pieces being two away from each other is kind of important. And I noticed that, and so I tried to exploit it with this. E4, rook e5, trying to do this move, and he saw it. So he played queen d4. And here's the huge blunder. Here's this spike right here that occurs, which takes the position from 0.61 for him. So, you know, it's going to be rough for me, but I can't hold this if I'm, you know, a grandmaster, to +7 for him, roughly. And that move was rook e6, attacking the pawn again, which allows the devastating queen d7. Horrible. And at first when the computer said queen d7, I was like, what? I knew I couldn't take it, because after takes, there's no way to stop the pawn. Just to show that if I take it now, how do you recommend stopping the pawn? Rook d6, right? Check, I have to move. That's a queen. Ends up a rook, and this rook will stop these pawns. So that's not an option. So after he plays queen d7, rook e7, right? Defending the queen. Well, in this position, he actually sacrifices the queen. He plays rook, queen captures e7. Because after queen e7 and c7, there's no way to stop the pawn. There's no way to stop the pawn. The computer recommends just fighting on, being down. That's kind of hard to do. I'd likely just take because I know what I'm getting into, instead of getting into crazy complications. But the computer says, no, go for crazy complications. It's your best chance to win, because it gives him the most chances to blunder, which is understandable. Okay. But after rook e6, he did not play the game-ending queen d7. Instead, he played queen c4. I returned. We just always repeat, right? If we repeat by threefold repetition, that's cool. I thought that I had a big strength in these pawns, but I'm really not able to use them right now. For pretty much the reason that he has, you know, this guy here, and those squares are really sensitive. And here he blundered back. So not winning the game with queen d7 was the first missed win. Then here he actually blundered. Remember I played rook e5 before? He saw it and played queen d4. I played rook e5 the second time. He had a little bit of deja vu, got a little confused, and played f4, trying to kick away my rook. Unfortunately, that kicks it to the square that it wanted to go, rook c5. And I think he actually missed that he could play queen f1 to save his rook, because he ended up taking here. Either way is good for me, because after this, I would just take this pawn first. You do not want to take the rook first, because after queen takes, he would defend the pawn. Just so you can see that. If he goes back here, do not take this. That's a super duper blunder. After queen c1, we can't take this pawn. It's still maybe enough, because we have two pawns here, but it's not a good idea. So in the game, after rook c5, he just gave up his queen, which is really surprising. I took b captures c5 and was happy to learn that he can't take this pawn anyway, because queen b6 would win. And I thought, wait a second, isn't there complications with the c pawn again? The answer is no, because I take with check and win the pawn back. So that was a real sigh of relief, going from a position which I really wasn't sure how to win, and his majority seems to be advancing, and my pawns look less and less impressive, to this position here. He played king g2, getting off the dark squares so he can take this pawn finally. I checked this pawn, of course, and I have two passed pawns with a queen. Very good. I'm also attacking that guy. He defended him. I attacked him for the second time. Rook c4 confused me, because now, after I check, he has to pin his own rook in order to stay alive. And here in the game, I was calculating taking, because my pawn looks so fast. But I realized I have to play this move first. He can't unpin anyway. after king e3, taking the queen is the best move with a plus 60 score. a3, which is the second, right? The second move you think about is actually only 14, because maybe he can move his rook over there or something like that. But this move is just winning. If he doesn't take your queen, I mean, you're up a queen. So if he takes it, you're still up a queen. Because after a3, if he tries to chase you down, he's one move too slow, and you get that queen anyway, which is really nice. And I'm happy I calculated that out during the game. But in the game, after a3, he played king d5. I pushed, made a queen. Yeah, I kind of thought I should have brought my queen just back here like this. A little cleaner. Okay, we take all the pawns. And here there's just the easy move, king f7. I almost played h4, which is stalemates. So sad. The king has no squares to go to. So that was really very nervous. I almost fell for that. King f7 is immediately checkmate. So I probably should have played that. The game ended in a slightly different way. Still checkmate anyway. But yeah, that was the game. So I played 89%. I terribly blundered a pretty drawn position. But then when he blundered, I capitalized, which I'm pretty happy about. Things to learn this game. Look for your opponent's threats. That's the main thing. Rook e6, sure, it attacks a pawn, but it doesn't look at my opponent's threats. And part of the reason I think I didn't see this move, queen d7, is because it's not a check or a capture. And I look at most checks and captures throughout the game. I really tried to. And my rating will go up the more that I do that. But this is not a check or a capture. This is a threat. It's hard to see. But it's easy to see when you start looking at your advantages versus your opponent's advantages. His advantage is this protected pawn, this protected passed pawn. And when you see that, hey, if he can, get it one square forward, it's unstoppable. Then that would be why a move like this would make a lot of sense. To stop a move like this from being so incredibly effective. But I didn't. And here, if queen d7, we played rook c8, defending our queen. So this is not a pleasant position, right? Our rook's like the most passive rook you've ever seen. And our king's going to take a while to get in. And for now, these pawns are kind of stuck. Like, they're not really doing a whole lot. I mean, but that's the situation. So let's see. What else did we cover? Just the opening was not very good. Not a reason to take this. Should have castled sooner. And then taking this last time, which resolves his weakness here, instead of just castling. Not super smart. Queen d8 is too slow. I have to, again, I see that I have two rooks. I see that I own the c file, so I should take advantage of that. Also, there's targets on the c file. a5 is the same thing. Queen d7 instead of queen d5. Queen d5 would have given me the advantage, because trading queens, I think, does not fit him. After queen d5, okay, it does say queen captures d5, giving me isolated pawn. Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to take yet. I'm supposed to simplify the position. And then take, which this looks really scary to me at first glance. But then you see, oh, his rook isn't doing anything here, because I'll just push this pawn. His rook is needed to stop the pawn. He doesn't have any targets because this square is taken. So it's kind of hard for me to see. It's sort of, unorthodox a little bit, but it really works for me. Okay, guys, that was the game. In short, look at checks, captures, and threats. Threats are the hardest ones to see, but an easy way to see them is to look at your opponent's advantages. And that would hopefully have stopped me from playing the terrible move, rook to e6, which was my only blunder in the game. I was hoping to have a blunderless game sometime soon. Rook e6, though, had to have one in there. Took the game from a 0.53 position, so pretty equal, to a +7 advantage for my opponent. He didn't see it. That's okay. We kept our cool. Thanks for watching. This has been Turkish Films. I hope you stay Turkish, and I hope you checkmate your opponent. Good night.